Fala galera do canal, me chamo Juliano. No vídeo de hoje veremos o repórter americano bastante preocupado com o futuro do dólar. Ele aborda o tema da desdolarização, Brics, essas coisas. Então já deixe seu like, inscreva-se no nosso canal para ajudar na divulgação e valeu!
From the 2024 election, and while American voters decide their fate between Kamala or Trump, there is a much bigger problem rising up in the US that won't be solved, no matter who wins the election. The future of the US dollar is changing, and renowned American economist Art Laffer, who previously served as a White House economic advisor, warned his fellow Americans that the US dollar is becoming an unhinged paper currency. His argument is one that's hard to refute. The US government's use of the dollar as a political weapon through sanctions and other measures has eroded international trust in the currency. This loss of confidence is driving countries to seek alternatives to the dollar, potentially leading to its eventual replacement as the primary global currency. What's more worrying about the US dollar's future is that neither Trump nor Kamala has a solution to fix it, because this is not a policy problem, but a debt problem. The United States is the most indebted country in the world, and their only solution is to simply print more money, which only further devalues the currency and moves the rest of the world closer to de-dollarization. But while the media focuses only on the US election the next few weeks, there is another event taking place on the other side of the world that will outline the exact future of the US dollar. The Brics Alliance will host its annual President's Summit next month in Russia, and the timing of this event couldn't be more symbolic, as it will be held 2 weeks prior to the US election. Last year, when the Brics presidents met, they officially announced the expansion of the alliance to include several new powerweight countries, including Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the UAE. Expansion is once again another focus point, as 24 new countries have officially applied to join the Brics Alliance before this year's annual summit. We'll see exactly how many countries are accepted into the organization in 2025, but one thing is for sure, is that interest and demand in Brics and their plans for de-dollarization is skyrocketing. It was reported this week that this meeting will introduce a multi-currency payment platform along with a roadmap for a gold-backed Brics trading currency. This roadmap is what's important, because the Brics Alliance has been hinting at launching its own gold-backed currency for a while now. And while this still may be a few years out, the Brics Alliance has announced their intentions to create an inclusive international financial system, one that is free from sanctions and restrictions and will remain open and inclusive to every country involved. China is the country that has made the most progress in using its currency, the yuan, for international trade. This chart from the Brookings Institute shows the trend of non-traditional currencies being used as a global currency reserve, which began aggressively increasing in 2010. Fast forward to today, and the Chinese yuan's share of international payments reached a record high this summer, as the Chinese currency has become the 5th largest currency in the world for reserves, payments, and trading, and the 3rd largest currency for commercial financing. This chart reveals just how much China's economy has shifted away from the US dollar. In 2010, an incredible 83% of China's cross-border payments and receipts were made in US dollars. At the time, China and the US enjoyed a fruitful relationship. Tensions between the countries were relatively low, and China had no problems using US dollars in trade. But in 2016, Donald Trump launched the trade war. He began imposing tariffs on Chinese goods, and for the past 4 years, the Biden administration has done everything in their power to cut off China from US technology and limit China's growth. Of course, this would result in China strategically shifting away from US reliance. And when China needs to pivot, they can do so faster than any country on earth. Take a look at that chart once again and see how quickly China has shifted away from the US dollar. Today, the majority of Chinese border payments and receipts, some 53%, are in China's local currency, with this percentage increasing as each month passes. One of my favorite financial insiders is Richard Turin, an American author who wrote a book about China's digital transformation called Cashless, China's Digital Currency Revolution. Richard makes the argument that there is a perfect storm brewing for the US dollar's demise, and it consists of 3 factors: sanctions, debt, and technology. For decades, the world has never had the technology to develop a payment system that escapes traditional US dollar banking. But with digital currencies, stablecoins, commodity-backed tokens, and the rise of crypto, the technology is already here. If you pay attention to what's happening in global markets, there have been large warning signs, even in traditional Western media publications, like this article from the Wall Street Journal, which warns the dominant dollar faces a backlash in the oil market. At the end of last year, JP Morgan announced that 20% of global oil sales were bought and sold in currencies outside the US dollar. This absolutely should be a red flag for all Americans, as oil has been traded exclusively in US dollars for many decades. The United States' close relationship with Saudi Arabia is one of the biggest reasons the US dollar has been so strong for so many decades. But even the Saudis have proven that not all good things last forever. Earlier this month, it was reported that the Saudis are now open to the petro-yuan and want closer ties with China moving forward. While the US has built a close relationship with the Saudi government by guaranteeing them US military protection for the past 50 years, China brings an entire new element to the negotiating table. The Saudis are interested in some of China's most advanced products and industries. China leads the world in electric vehicles and has become the dominant player in renewable energy and even launched China's first C-919 passenger jet, all of which the Saudi government hopes to import into their country to help diversify their economy. China and Saudi Arabia have already signed a 3-year currency swap agreement last year worth 50 billion yuan, that's equivalent to just over $7 billion US dollars, to increase non-dollar trade between the two nations. But the Saudis aren't the only ones making big moves on the international stage. I made a full video on Turkey's decision to formally apply for BRICS membership earlier this summer. And leading into next month's annual BRICS meeting, I feel this is one of the most important storylines to follow. As indicated in this article, Turkey's BRICS gambit is just what Russia ordered, as Turkey's President Erdogan will be in attendance at the BRICS summit next month in Russia. Don't forget, Turkey is a full NATO member and the gateway between Asia and Europe. Turkey originally was interested in formally joining the EU and started the process of EU membership in 2005. But here we are, nearly 20 years later, and still no EU membership for Turkey, forcing them to seek alternative options, like aligning with Russia and China and joining the BRICS organization. As Donald Trump tries to win back the White House this November, he has vowed to his fellow Americans that he will keep the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. But politicians are used to making empty promises, and I want to bring this full circle and share with you more insights from economist Art Lafer, who reveals how the US dollar's collapse is directly affecting Americans living inside the United States today. There's nothing that can bring an economy to its knees quicker and faster than unhinged paper currencies. And those unhinged paper currencies lead to high interest rates, they lead to high inflation, they lead to a huge expansion of the Fed's balance sheet. We are moving away from monetary stability. We are moving towards an unhinged paper currency. Record high interest rates, inflation, huge expansion of the Fed's balance sheet. This is literally exactly what has been happening to America's economy for the past 4 years, making life for the average American harder and more difficult. Once again, we see a direct correlation to the loss of trust in the dollar and the rise of alternatives. Gold, something I've been reporting about for many months now, continues to set all-time highs, while other alternatives like Bitcoin continue to gain momentum. Everyone, as you can see, the world is shifting. Moving forward, de-dollarization is something that you will hear as a key strategy for many developing nations as they seek to diversify away from the US dollar and, more importantly, the US government.
Eu sei que muita gente vai concordar, outras vão discordar, só que não dá pra negar que o vídeo foi extremamente bem feito, bem produzido, trouxe vários autores diferentes, dados estatísticos, uma visão de mercado assim ampla, não dá pra negar que o vídeo foi muito bem feito. E se você gosta desse estilo de conteúdo, eu acabei de criar um Instagram pro canal, então se você gosta desses tipos de vídeos, por favor, você tem que seguir lá. Ontem eu postei um vídeo da desdolarização, hoje de manhã eu já postei um vídeo sobre a COP28, ou seja, tudo nesse mesmo modelo de matérias internacionais. Então se você gosta de acompanhar e gosta do meu trabalho, por favor, siga lá no Instagram porque vai ajudar muito. Eu vou deixar o link tanto na descrição do vídeo, como também nos comentários. Então por favor, dê essa ajudinha aí pra mim, mas já deixe seu like, inscreva-se no nosso canal para ajudar na divulgação, comente o que você achou sobre tudo isso e valeu!